Welcome to a live edition of Deep Look on this Tuesday, May 21st. I'm Charlie Eisenhood, joined by Keith Rayner. We are ready for the D1 College Championships coming up starting Friday. Cannot wait. This is one of the classic episodes every year, Keith, the D1 Nationals preview show. Before we get into all that,
the most anticipated, people want it.
I'm so excited. It's going to be so much fun. Before we get into all that, though, we had the D3 College Championships this past weekend. Finals concluding after a long lightning delay during the women's game yesterday, and we've got brand new champions in both divisions. It's Portland taking down Carleton College Eclipse 15-13 in the women's final. A great game. And over on the men's side, St. Olaf beats Williams 15-12 in that one. Keith, the D3 College Nationals, I think, gets better every single year. The quality at the top of the division gets better every single year. And a couple of great finals to go back and watch if you haven't seen them already.
Really dramatic bracket play leading up to that, too. So I think this really sets the table for another awesome Nationals, because those were really standout performances. I mean, you had the stars really showing up in Milwaukee. You got Will Brandt making SportsCenter top 10. You got JJ Gallion, video game numbers everywhere. You had clashes between these top players, Danny Klein and Rowan Dong and Frankie Sereniti. I mean, just a number of big name players showing out. There's always something a little like classic college ultimate in that wholesome way about D3, where you have these takeover players who run every point. Sometimes they'll go every other. That's just the nature of the game down there, and it makes for some real thrilling play, and it's easy to get attached and emotionally invested in watching these stars really have their time to shine.
Well, let's take a look at this layout from Will Brandt. If you haven't seen it already on socials or on SportsCenter, take a look. I mean, this is just as crazy as it gets. I mean, we might not see a better play at D1 Nationals than this. That was an unbelievable catch. Full extension, complete commitment. There's an amazing ulti-photo shot of it from Brian Caniff. Oh, my God. How did he get there, Keith?
Caniff absolutely nailed the shot. Big shout out. It looks like the logo. You know what I mean? This could be the logo. Just sailing through the air. And to be maybe the best thrower in the division, and then also be able to do that, the Pody is this is the least controversial Pody pick, I think, in the history of Ulti World.
Let's take a look at this moments from JJ Gallion, who was the superstar in the women's division at the tournament, leading the way for Portland and carrying them to their first national championship. And I mean, Keith, she was just one-on-one was completely unstoppable. You just watched her cook every defender that any team threw at her. And just a moment there. Keep an eye out for the Great Performances series, though, over on YouTube, where she had 11 assists and 3 goals in the semifinal. Insane stuff, Keith.
Really just was so fun to watch, because it's not unusual for there to be this big time thrower, center handler type, right? We've seen the Tulsa Douglases and the Josie Gillettes in years past. And that type of player is really exciting, but to get a new version of that with this dynamic mover, I mean, Gallion is breaking ankles all over the field, initiating downfield. That was a fun wrinkle, and I think she's going to be a player to watch moving forward. I mean, she's already got a club year with Schwab, but I think people are going to know a lot more about JJ Gallion than they did 3 days ago.
You wonder what would have happened if Gemma Monk didn't get hurt from Whitman. A team that had Portland's number all season, maybe they would have been champions. But hey, you gotta play the teams in front of you, and Portland was clearly the best team at this tournament.
It's hard not to think about it, and I hope Gemma's recovery is going well. But Yeah, we still ended up with some pretty high quality star versus star matchups. I mean, we were talking about during the game that you and I called. We got to call the women's division final, and you don't often get the best player on each team guarding each other, and I feel like that's so much less common now, especially in Division One. So it was a treat in D3.
Well, let's watch some final moments from these two games. We'll start in the women's division. Portland versus Carleton. Carleton went down after they were leading, and then there was a 4-hour lightning delay. They gave up a 3-0 run. They were trailing at halftime, but they got a break back late, but needed to come up with one more stop. Couldn't get it. Galleon gets open on the little move, one-on-one. Disc into the end zone for Maxwell, and it was all over. Let's take a look at what happened with St. Olaf. It was a tight game with Williams. They were going back and forth, but at the end of the day, they got it down into the red zone, and a little hammer to uncovered space on the break side, and Keith, Berserkers taking it home. Every Northfield college team has now won a national championship. Carleton in all D1 and D3 divisions, and now St. Olaf in both D3 divisions.
Northfield. Charlie, there may be if there is not an additional university in Northfield, some tiny school we don't know about, like you and I need to start investing. Like, let's get our land grant together, because apparently you just put your school in Northfield and you get national titles. Like, I don't know, it seems like a pretty simple recipe.
The Dakota County Technical College in Rosemount, Minnesota is nearby, but it's technically not in Northfield. So we'll see when they put a team on the field, Keith. D4 college nationals. Any other storylines that you want to touch on from D3?
Just one little storyline about a prognosticator that could. Yours truly, Charlie. I seem to recall. I wish we could run the tape right now. Run the tape of me saying the exact sequence of Middlebury, Richmond gets the win. Then Williams beats Richmond in semis, and then we'll have a nice little St. Olaf Will Brandt title over Williams. And Charlie scoffing at the notion that I could be picking right. Well, guess what?
I can't deny it. You called the literal exact bracket sequence, which is extremely impressive. I said that wasn't going to age well, and really I was talking about my own take. But I did pick both winners, which I feel really good about. I don't think, like a lot of people, I saw a lot of people picking Middlebury. Our own staff, million people picking Middlebury men's to win this year. I thought St. Olaf was clear. Like, having the best player on the field in D3 is more important than probably any other level of ultimate. Maybe high school, but like Will Brandt is just that good. And I really like the path that they had. So, I mean, they shut everybody down. I mean, what was the closest game? Was it 15-12 in the final? Yeah. Oh, no, they had that opener against Bates. It was 15-14.
Yeah, they almost lost to Bates. And they had to come back earlier in the weekend, too. So.
Yeah,
these were some awesome games that we got throughout the weekend, though. Like Alex Hunkins mentioned the Middlebury Richmond game being crazy. I mean, there were some really wild outcomes. There's the Richmond comeback before the Middlebury game where they were down 13-8 and came back and won that game. I mean, that was out of control. The real drama in Milwaukee for sure.
All right, it is time for our trivia question of the week.
All right, Charlie. Queued up a nice little Nationals trivia question for you, and it's a pretty straightforward one, but we'll see if you can pull it off. So I went back, I guess the last 10 years, 9 seasons, 10 years, back to 2014, which to me, like, that feels like the start of the Ulti-World era, so to speak. That is the Ohio State Fever national title and Colorado in the men's division as your reference point. I want to see, of all the years since then, that year included, in each division, what is the best assist performance over the course of the tournament? Tournament leader every year, which is the highest across all of those. So you're just picking one from the men's division and one from the women's division.
I'm gonna throw some names out there because I mean I'll try to pick the winner right away, but I'm gonna throw a few names out because I may not get it on the first try. But I'm thinking.
Well,
tell us about.
Let me give you one caveat. Let me give you one caveat.
Okay.
Which is that the pool play stats from 2021 don't exist. So 2021 does not count. But every other
okay.
Everything else is good.
Okay, got it. I'm thinking. You tell us about Sunset Lake CBD, and I will have my answers for you on the other side.
Well, I love telling you about Sunset Lake CBD. They grow high quality hemp products on their farm located right outside of Burlington, Vermont. And they're a people focused company. When you call, you get to talk to a person. And they take care of their employees who own the majority of the company. And they take great care with their products, only using what they grow themselves and testing regularly for quality assurance. This is a big decision show. I mean, I think basically all year about making sure I get it right on this show, our annual college pick show. And I got to say, I've been pretty hot this season. Had a pretty good regular season. Absolutely crushed in D3 last week. Remember when I told you about Sunset Lake Focus Gummies, how I was taking a couple last week? Is it a coincidence that once I've started taking the Sunset Lake Focus Gummies, I suddenly can't get any picks wrong? Correlation is not causation, I know. But I do think this merits further investigation. So you can find out for yourself by going to Sunset Lake today at sunsetlakecbd.com. Use our coupon code DEEPLOOK for 20% off your order, and then just start making some picks on some things. Go get in the game, go down to your local supermarket, play some, price guessing, supermarket sweep kind of thing. I don't know. Just start picking stuff because I think you'll find out that these focus gummies can really help you. That's Sunset Lake CBD, farmer owned, Vermont grown. All right. So chat,
right.
if you've got some guesses, go ahead and fire them off for the assist leaders over the past 9 seasons of college nationals. Let's see what you come up with.
All right, I'm going to throw some guesses out. Here we go. A women's side, Ava Hanna.
Ava Hanna did lead in 2020, but is not the overall leader.
Okay. Men's side, Matt Bennett.
Did not lead in any of the years that I have tracked.
Did not lead in the year. Wow. Probably led in turnovers though. That's just for you, Matt.
In nutmegs.
Was he there the year that Parker Bray?
Don't have Parker Bray on the list either.
Johnny
It helps to make a deep run, Charlie. It helps to make a deep run. You get some extra games to gather up those assists.
I guess that's a really good point. I have to pick a team that has a big thrower and makes it at least to semis. That makes a lot of sense. Well, okay. I definitely have one for men's that will be at least close to the top, if not number one. Mac Hecht, 2019 Brown.
That is correct. Mac Hecht is way up there and would be number one were it not for one outlier year where all the throwers went crazy. Mac Hecht with 36 in 2019.
Damn, that's a lot. Okay, give me the year. Maybe that will help me for men's.
Okay, and in the men's division, it's 2015.
2015? Okay, so that was UNC championship because they had just lost, and that was Jack Williams?
Jack Williams, 2017, not 2015. I think he was more of a goal scorer in 2015. You were on the right path.
That's right. You're right. I'm not going to come up with it. What was it? Was it Nethercutt?
Who's a big time thrower from UNC? Jonathan Nethercutt. That is your big winner. 46. I don't know what was going on in 2015 because they had the top 3. Nethercutt with 46, Crystal Rock with 40, and Dylan Freechild with 37.
Oh,
I don't know what was happening in 2015, but that's your top 3, and they're all from the same season.
That's crazy.
Wild. Jack Williams also, I think he might have led in goals and then 2 years later led in assists. Like, I wonder how many players really have led in both categories at some point.
Well, I remember
career.
like the first year he was, or maybe he was a sophomore, he just went so crazy and it was like, whoa, who's this dude? And then now he's like the top 5 player in the world.
All right, I'll give you women's division. Do you want a hint?
Yeah, hint. Give me a hint. Give me a year hint.
The person who led also led in 3 consecutive years, which is out of control.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I should definitely be able to get this. That's a great hint. Hang on. But it's not going to be a Carolina player. It's not going to be a Carolina player. Okay, we had the Oregon years. Could it be Oregon, somebody? I don't really think so.
You're missing another dynasty.
I know. What am I missing? I'm blanking. Give it to me. Oh, Dartmouth. Wait. Angela
Zhu with 38 in 2016, just eclipsing
that makes sense.
Quincy Booth's 37 from last year. Unbelievable to lead nationals in assists for 3 straight years, which Angela did from 2015 to 2017. It's pretty ridiculous, but there you go.
I just want to go back
Angela
really quick.
Zhu in the women's division, and another cut.
I just want to go back really quick. You mentioned that Jonathan Nethercutt, Chris LaRock, and Dylan Freechild led the tournament in assists and are the top 3 of the last 10 years in assists. They were all in the same pool because Oregon got upset at regionals and ended up as like a bottom seed in the insane triple semifinalist pool. That was a crazy nationals.
All timer for sure. And shout out to producer Lindsay Sue for nailing the Angela Zhu pick, by the way.
Love it. All right. I think we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to start talking D1 Nationals. It's time.
Hey, this is Robin Fennig. One of the only things that we have to bring to an ultimate tournament are our cleats. And every player has a cleat story, right? Mine took place in 2022 when Noyes slayed our regional rival Dragon Thrust on Universe Point in a rainy semifinal at the USA Ultimate Club Championships. In my toe case, I didn't have to change a single thing about how I cut to get open for resets. I was so lost in the moment that I didn't even know it was Universe Point when I threw the game-winning huck to Dylan DeClercq. Toque cleats are specifically designed for Ultimate, with a cleat pattern for the game's sharp cuts and a durable, breathable, supportive build to keep your feet and ankles protected and comfortable for longer. That's why I've been using them for over 6 years. They're my best ally in the field. You put your best self on the field, so make sure you're bringing the best with you at toqueultimate.com. That's TOKAY-ultimate.com. Toque, sky the limits.
Heads up, Breakmark now has sublimated 5-panel hat. You can get the hat and their famous reversible free with the purchase of one of their 3-piece team bundles, starting at just $85. Get all the details at breakmark.com. Charlie's muted right now. Classic live show blunder.
God. Oh my God. What am I doing out here? There's no way to know that I'm muted besides like paying attention to the little icon, which disappears. I'm sorry, but we are back and D1 college preview time. I'm very excited. I was looking at my picks earlier, Keith, and I was doing a lot of head scratching. This has got to be one of the hardest years to predict that we've ever had. Because there's question marks about some injuries, and matchups are not super clear. Like, teams have beaten each other throughout the season. So how do you decide? I mean, are you going to pick on history? Often that's a good idea, but is that a certainty this year? I don't think so. It is not going to be an easy year to beat everybody in the Beat Charlie Challenge, but I'm going to give it my best shot.
Charlie, I think it's a year that you got to tap into your inner Yu-Gi-Oh and just rely on the heart of the cards. It's a tough pick here for sure.
All right, well, let's pick a division and let's run down the pools. It's the first thing I want to do. We are going to get a chance to look at our broadcast schedule a little bit later. It's going to be the debut. Well, technically, if you've got a keen eye and you've checked it out on the USAU website, you've probably already seen the broadcast schedule. But we have some pretty graphics from our own Lucia Way that we're going to put up on the air, and we can take a look at those a little bit later. So I want to start. Let's see. How about we start in the women's division, Keith?
Okay, I'm game. Let's run down the pools.
Yep. Let's take a look at the pools.
So we've got at the top of the women's pools, UBC, Vermont, and Carleton and UNC. Pool A, we got Tufts, UVic, UCSD, Colorado State, and these are some pretty compelling pools. I won't read them all off because you can see them. Sorry to our podcast listeners, but Charlie, I'm looking at these pools, and what do you think is the pool of death? That's always the opening question. Who do we think is the?
We did talk a little bit about this last week. I think in the women's division, I do think it's Pool D. The 4-5-9 is a classic spot. Santa Barbara is, I think, pretty clearly the toughest 3 seed. And overall, I do think I look at these pools and I see a lot of the top 2 teams advancing. I'm picking very few upsets for pre-quarters, let's say. I think that, Vermont versus Colorado at the top of Pool B, I'm curious about that. Can Stanford get into form and find a way to take down Carleton in Pool C? Perhaps. Oregon and UNC at the top of Pool D is a great matchup. But otherwise, like, a lot of this looks like it's going to go pretty chalky to me early in the tournament in pool play. I feel less strongly about that on the men's side, but yeah, for me, Pool D is a pool of death.
I think that you're spot on with like feeling that the top of these pools really clip off from the bottom of the pools, probably with the exception of that 4-5-9. And I have some credence for Washington as well. But still, I can't even favor Washington in either of their top matchups. But after that, at the top, I don't know how things are going to layer out. Like, I can see any of these 2 seeds being the top of the pools, and I can see the bottom 3 finishing in just about any order. But hard for me to envision a lot of crossover coming between the 2. Seeing a 4 seed beating out a 1 seed. So I think that's where you get tricky, and maybe it's going to come down to who gets tied up a bit. If you're Stanford and you have to play a tough game against UPenn, does that tire you out for when you have to play Carleton or something like that? I'm not even looking at the schedule to see if that's the exact order, but does that play a factor in how you perform later in the tournament? That may be a question mark, but it does feel like there's a real tiering happening at the top, but more interaction in the tiers than what we're used to.
Yeah, it's always fun to, dig a little deeper into the pools and look at the matchups early on. Like, for instance, Pool A, UBC and Tufts play first thing on Friday. So the 1 and 2 seeds play in the very first round. That is not a comfortable spot. I think it's like very much favors the underdog in those situations. I think UBC is a favorite against Tufts, but Tufts is not a bad team. And in the first round, you're a little nervous, you're a little jittery, there's some drops. We see it every year. Can you take advantage of that if you're Tufts? I mean, it's an unusual scheduling fact. Compare that to what Vermont is getting. They play the 5 seed in their pool, Georgia, in their first game. That's, a little bit more what you'd like to see as the top seed in your pool for your first round matchup.
It is. I think that the scheduling does provide some unique wrinkles. I think it's better us to move away from every pool having the exact same structural schedule. It may introduce some imbalances, I guess, but not in a way that feels significant to me. We are keep an eye on that game though, because we do know that back at TEP at TEP that star UBC handler Madison Ong suffered an injury. Don't know what her status is going into nationals, but maybe that's a better situation for UBC to be able to get her out there. And if she is able to play her in their biggest game first and be able to rest her for more down the way. Maybe it's worse because maybe it's better for her to get her legs underneath her. I don't know. But it is something to keep an eye on going into what's going to be UBC's biggest pool play game right off the bat at 10:30 on Friday. What do you when you look here, like, is there a matchup in particular that you're really eyeing? Like, where do you see that potential key upset happening?
Oh man, I mean, for it to happen, Keith, we're going to need to see teams that have not achieved to their kind of the level that we expected from them at the start of the year reach those levels. So Stanford versus Carleton, for instance, they played long ago, back at the beginning of the season. Stanford lost by 4, but we know that the Superfly team is very capable of playing at a high level, and they eke out a 1-point win over UCSB at regionals. They dominate the rest of the region. I think they're good. Are they good enough to beat Carleton? I'm not sure I'm going to pick that upset, but it's a game that I'm looking at. Same thing with Vermont and Colorado. I mean, Colorado, if they play to the maximum potential of their roster, could absolutely upset Vermont and really throw things into chaos right away. But we'd have to see them level up, because from what we've seen from these teams so far, the 1 seeds in pools feel like dominant favorites.
I can see how you got there. I remember when you thought UNC might be the 2 seed in their pool, and maybe we'd be having a different conversation then. But I think that Stanford's going to be a team people are looking at a lot. Carleton maybe not the most convincing of the top pool seeds. I mean, I know that they beat UNC, but you can understand why people are going to give UNC a pass in some ways going into this tournament. And then UBC and Vermont have been dominant. I think if people do feel that way, I disagree with it. I think you're selling Carleton a little bit short. But the one that I've got my eye on is Oregon UNC. Oregon's gotten a couple wins over Stanford, but they haven't gotten a ton of other big games in them. They played UBC a couple times. They lost big in a few of those. And I think they lost big to Carleton as well. But I don't know, man. This team has so many they have so many young players that I could see really growing over the course of the season. More good rookies after last year's class. I don't know. They feel like a firecracker team. Like, I don't know if I would expect them to play really consistently throughout the tournament. But they're the type of team that I think if they get on a roll, they could be as good as the truly elite teams. So they're a team that I'm really paying attention to and probably talking myself into in some ways.
I want to note that Oregon has shown us kind of like the flashes, but they've also had some big letdown games. It's definitely a bellwether game for both teams. If Oregon even loses like 15-14, I would think, wow, like they could make a run. But I have to be honest, I think UNC is going to take care of that game pretty comfortably. But I want to see. Does Pleiades look like they're ready to make a run? I think it's a great tester game, and it's rare that UNC gets a tester game before semifinals at nationals, and they're going to get one this year.
And the pool's really going to be up for grabs. They play at the end of the day on Friday, so both teams will have a game underneath them and still have at least one round off. Oregon plays in the morning and then at the end of the day, but UNC will get at least a round off to recoup. And then they both play UCSB on the next day, so the pool's really going to be up for grabs, and there's not going to be any clear knowledge of who's going to win the pool. So I think that both teams are going to be going pretty much all out in that Friday and end of day game. Should be a thriller.
No doubt. Oh yeah, of course. I mean, it's like You probably feel pretty good about your chances against the rest of the pool. You know you're going to make the bracket, and it's just like we got to play hard for the 1 seed. Like, what are you leaving in the tank? I mean, there's no question. All right, Keith. I guess let's just stay here and let's start getting into some of our actual picks. I've actually written down my picks. I do, as always, reserve the right to make a last-minute change in the Beat Charlie Challenge, but I expect that these will be my picks in the Beat Charlie Challenge. So, well, lucky you. You can hear what I'm doing and try to pick against me if you want, strategically. At the tops of my pools, I've got the 1 seeds. I'm sticking with UBC despite the injury concerns for Matty Ong. I think that they're still good enough to win that pool. Now, that uncertainty may come into play later in my picks. The only upset that I have scheduled, Keith, is I have San Diego finishing 3rd in Pool A, upsetting Victoria, minor upset, 13-12. And I have Western Washington over Michigan in Pool B for the second pre-quarter spot and 3rd place in the pool. Otherwise, I'm going straight chalk.
Proven strategy in the women's division over the past handful of years. So this is not a giant surprise to me, but straight chalk all the way through to the final.
No. That's just for pool play. I'm just giving my pool play thoughts.
Just check. Okay.
Yeah, but a lot of Western teams. I'm giving Western teams the benefit of the doubt in toss-up matches. Stanford over Carleton would be the true like all in on the West Coast pick, but I'm not doing that. And I guess Oregon over UNC, but I am sticking with those top seeds. I think they've earned the respect.
Okay.
You picking any big upsets in pool play?
I've been ruminating on it. I've been trying to decide, am I going to go with the big pool play upset? And I don't think I'm going to get there in pool play. I'm very tempted to pick Oregon over UNC. Yeah, I'm tempted, but let's see if I do take where does D2 go? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think I know what I'm going to do. So, our semifinalists are you're taking, are you still taking the top 4 seeds or what do you got?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm if you want to go all the way to semis, let's go. I have mine picked out all the way from pre-quarters. I got all my picks made.
Oh, you want to do the whole bracket? Okay. I'm down. I feel like I always want to do this.
I can run it down. I mean, okay. Colorado, Washington, Stanford, Western, Oregon, UCSD, Tufts, UCSB. Those are my pre-quarters that are generated by the pool play results that I have selected. I've got Colorado getting I don't know, is it an upset? Probably not. But I got them over Washington. I've got Stanford over Western, Oregon over San Diego, and Tufts over Santa Barbara. Ooh, boy, I really want to take Santa Barbara there, though. Ooh. I'm changing my mind. I'm taking UCSB. West Coast, baby. So then in quarters, I have Colorado UBC, Stanford UNC, Oregon Carleton, and Santa Barbara Vermont. This is where it really gets tough. I'm taking Vermont. I'm taking Carleton. I'm taking UNC. Those are all the by the seeding picks. So those are 3 of my semifinalists. UNC, Syzygy, and Vermont. I am going to take Colorado over UBC in what is going to potentially be a monumental upset, but I cannot get last year out of my mind, and the status of Matty Ong concerns me too much to stick with UBC, and it's brutal. It's brutal. I mean, I hope she's healthy. I hope she plays. If she is playing, I think I take UBC to the final and probably to win it all. The fact that I'm not sure leaves me having to make this pick of Colorado over UBC. And so those are my 4 semifinalists: Colorado, UNC, Carleton, Vermont.
Okay. All right. So I see a lot of the top end going the same way that you do. I've got the same quarterfinals matchups, Colorado versus UBC. I'm pretty sure I do. I'm figuring this out as I go now. But I don't see any cups like in pre-quarters. And I'm going to take Tufts over UCSB in that one. Is there any argument? Can I convince myself of Washington? They have to play. No. Okay. So yeah, I have the same quarters matchups as you do. But I think I'm going to take some different results. I'm going to take. I mentioned that I have Tufts. That is the one difference. Okay, so I'm going to take. Oh man, I gotta hold on that pick because I'm really not sure. So I'm going to take UNC to semis in Vermont, and then I did talk myself into a surprise, Charlie, which is I'm taking Oregon. I'm taking Oregon to upset Carleton in quarters. So I'll get Vermont versus Oregon. But then that Colorado UVC game, that Madison Ong news is hard. That's hard.
It's hard. It's hard. It's really hard.
Colorado has been so shaky this year.
I know that. I think UBC could beat them if Ong doesn't play. I think they could still win, but it depends on which Colorado shows up. I can't shake last year.
I think that they've just been too shaky for me this year for me to buy in. And there is a chance Ong is playing, right? Like
of course.
So it's not just like Ong is out. And I do think they could win without her. I'm going to take UBC to advance. So I have UBC versus UNC and Vermont versus Oregon. Oregon, my one surprise team.
All right. Well, I will give you the rest of the way for me. I have UNC over Colorado. As I looked at the bracket and the path for Carolina, I can't see anything else besides them returning to the finals. I've got Vermont over Carleton. And so I've got a UNC Vermont rematch from last year's semi. That didn't go well for Vermont. This year, it will. I've got Vermont Ruckus taking down the whole thing. I think they've showed us that they're ready to win. I think they might have the best player on the field in Kennedy McCarthy. And that's with Don Colton on the field. I acknowledge that. I think that this team, they haven't lost a game since Queen City tune-up. And they beat UNC twice in late March. What more do I need to see? Follow your eyes, follow the data. Vermont to the championship.
Well, here's where we begin to align because I'm on the exact same tip. I got UNC over UBC, and then I've got Vermont. I mean, I buy on Vermont. Like we've seen them get better every year. They keep adding talent every year. Caroline Stone, Emily Posey, like it is not just the Kennedy McCarthy show. Mae Browning's going to get a lot of touches. I do think that I heard that Sophie Acker may have gotten hurt at regionals. That's a pretty considerable loss, but they do have the athletes and the depth to kind of fill in without her. So yeah, I mean, it just doesn't feel like UNC is the same level of invincible. I think Vermont's going to be less intimidated at the moment than they were last year. And it feels like they got better and UNC got a little worse. So at this point, I think I got to take Vermont to take it down.
Exciting stuff. You could put your picks in the chat, folks. All right. We'll see. I mean, Carolina could do it again, though. They really could. It's definitely possible. I love that the coaching staff is great. They're going to have adjustments from those losses back at East Coast Invite. But I just think the talent level is the thing that matters the most. And I just feel like overall, top to bottom, I like Vermont a little bit more. Let's talk.
Well, Charlie, but before you move on to the men's division, I'll give you. I got us back 2 subscriber picks, so the subscribers can go heads up with us since there's 2 of us.
Oh yes, great.
Subscribers are doing that. Now they're fortunately it won't take long to go through them because they're identical. They don't have Colorado. They have UBC, Vermont, Carleton, and UNC. So we each are a little different from they are, but they're identical there. And then we have UBC and Carleton in one pick. So Carleton to the final with UBC getting the win. And then we got UBC Vermont in the other one and Vermont getting the win. So 2 different champions, UBC in both picked as finalists, but Carleton, Vermont on the other end. So some big variation at the end.
What I love is that, like, even looking at the quarters matchups, it is not obvious who's going to win these games. I think you really, in the women's division, it feels like you got to get to quarters before you're going to really start seeing significant upsets. But I don't rule out any of those quarterfinalists from getting a win and getting to semis. I think any of them could do it. Maybe I have to squint pretty hard to see somebody upsetting Vermont. Like, I have Santa Barbara in that game. Could be Tufts. But I don't think those teams will win. But it's not impossible. Santa Barbara is really good. So let's move on. Men's division.
I'm a Devin Quinn fan. Let's see what the men's division has to offer, because this is going to be hard too.
Oh boy. I mean, the pools are much more up in the air, I think. Where to begin? I mean, we already talked about Pool of Death last week. I think what I'm considering a lot is that you've got some live 4 seeds in UAH and Penn State, potentially, maybe. Mm-hmm. And you've also got 3 seeds in all 4 pools. That's Texas, Carleton, Minnesota, and Vermont, that, like, have the potential and the skill on their roster to get upsets. So I don't think anything is set in stone. I think the matchups at the top of every pool are extremely interesting. You couldn't ask for a better 2 seed to face UNC than Brown, who's given them so much trouble over the past 5 years. Almost beat them last year to knock them out of the bracket. That we get that matchup, and Brown just coming off the win at New England Regionals. Like, what's UNC going to do? They couldn't stop those guys last year. Nissen and Gordon cooked all game. I don't know that this year's team is better than last. I think that could be a trouble spot for Carolina and an early test for sure. Georgia, Oregon, great tester game at the top of Pool B. UMass and Pitt playing again in Pool C. You know, is UMass going to be healthy? That's a huge question mark. And then Colorado, Cal Poly Slow at the top of Pool D. I love every single top of the pool matchup, Keith.
This is a pretty, you're spot on for having, like, highlighting the lower seeds, because I think that there's a little bit of a difference here between this and the women's division. That's that I feel like basically every team at this tournament can beat the team seated one spot above them in the pools. And so it feels highly unlikely that we're going to get chalk to me. Like, you know, I've been a big Carleton supporter for a lot of the year, and then Minnesota goes out and beats them at regional. So I'm feeling a little more high on Minnesota. You know, Pittsburgh feels like they've gotten better with the added depth. Like, maybe they can finally deliver on the promise. UAH, America's team, they look scary. Oregon State, though, is their 5 seed. Like, is anybody?
Oregon State.
Is it nobody wants
They're
to call
legit.
Oregon State, right? Yeah.
No way.
This is difficult. This is a difficult pick. Yeah, I really like the first 2 pools in particular. You know, I think NC State, Alabama, Huntsville are particularly strong 4 seeds. I do like Penn State too. Vermont I've been probably too low on for much of the year. I know there's all the Ottawa hype. Where's that Ottawa hype going? Like, are we taking them over Gavin Mayless, California? Could they upset Minnesota? Where I want to see, everybody's been talking all about Ottawa. When somebody picked them to get some wins. Let's see them in pre-quarters. You know what I mean?
What if they beat Minnesota? How crazy would that be?
Pretty wild, but
I'm not
maybe achievable.
That,
when do they play?
No.
They play first game on Friday. Come on, you just said
that's huge. That's huge for Ottawa. That's huge for Ottawa.
And we know that Ottawa's really thin. They got a thin roster, so everybody's going to be super fresh.
Got to go out fast. You got nothing to lose, right? They have nothing to lose, and nobody has any tape on them. Nobody knows what their deal is. I'm curious. I'm not gonna lie, I'm curious.
I think that that game's going down to the wire. If that game is 11-11 or 12-12, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if we're talking about that on Field Pass.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. Let's see. I guess it's time to get to our picks.
What's your best matchup, Charlie? What's the best? What's
straight up
game?
number one matchup?
What's the game you got to see in these pools?
It's a tough call. I think I say UNC Brown. It's rare that I want a 1-8 matchup as my number one matchup, but I'm extremely intrigued by that game.
There's so much narrative. Yeah, that one's definitely there for me. I think the game I tough call between Pitt, UMass, and slow Colorado. I think it's slow Colorado for me. I know it's kind of boring to pick the 5-4 seed, but that one, Charlie, I'm with the fans. I got to see what this UAH team is made of. I want to see them against Brown. That's like maybe my second favorite matchup too. Sorry, Pitt and UMass.
Every UAH game is interesting. Every single one.
They are.
They could go 0-4.
Anything could happen.
They could go 2-2. They could shock the world. It's a great spot for them to be in.
Like I could close my eyes and imagine them winning their pool, and that's ridiculous. So yeah, that's wild times. I guess my other question is, Charlie, for you, who's your dark horse? Like, give me a team outside of the top 8 seeds or whatever to make a run. They don't necessarily have to win, but who would you pick if you had to pick from the bottom 3 teams in the pools? And who's your pick?
Minnesota. I think it's an easy call. They have so much talent. If their O-line gets hot, part of winning at nationals is getting hot. You have to be in the zone. We see teams get into the zone, or great teams get out of the zone and lose. And I just think that they have enough talent on the team that they could surprise. They could surprise in pool play and then go from there and parlay that into success in the bracket. It's not impossible for me to imagine them as a semifinalist.
It's interesting because I feel like I can't quit. I can't quit this cut team. I just can't get them out of.
They are very volatile. They're very volatile.
I'm like really thinking about picking UAH to be that team. I think that, speaking of, you want volatility, you got this team that's like veteran laden. This is not your like average, I feel like, showcase team that like maybe has some great rookies and stuff. This is a team that's coalesced together and a bunch of guys who have good club experience that I think are going to be a little less intimidated than a first year team would be. But they got a tough draw.
They do have a tough draw. The only really good win they have is over Cal Poly Slow, 13-12. They've played close with good teams, but they've mostly lost to the Nationals teams. They got smoked by Georgia 14-7 at regionals. They lost big to Minnesota at Easterns. They lost to Brown. They've beaten the lower teams like Michigan and Penn State, but they haven't really stepped up. Could they? Sure. I don't know. Why not? They feel like a team that could get hot. It's pretty interesting. All right. Time to dig into our actual picks. I'll run it down really quick. My pool play picks. I am going UNC Brown, UAH at the top of Pool A. So I've got UAH upsetting Texas to get to that final pre-quarter spot. I've got Georgia, Oregon, Carleton, Pool B. UMass, Pitt, Minnesota, Pool C. And slow Colorado, UVM, Pool D. Not that many upsets, ultimately. But I do think that the games could be competitive. We could even see like multiple teams tied at 3-1 or something with a point diff decision maker. I think I'm almost worried that I'm not picking enough upsets, to be honest. Should I keep going, or do you want to give us pool play thoughts?
Okay, my pool play finishes, I think. Fuck it, let's do it live. I'm taking Brown to beat UNC.
Wow.
So I'm going pool A, Brown, UNC, UAH. Then in pool B, oh man, how do I get this pool going to seed? That doesn't feel right to me, but I'm going to take Georgia, Oregon, Carleton. It doesn't feel right to me, but I'm going to go with it. Then I'm taking UMass, Minnesota, Pitt, and slow Colorado, Vermont, in those orders. So that gives me okay. I'm ready to go to quarters. I'm ready to pick into my quarters because that'll tell you who wins my pre-quarters too.
Okay. Well, I have Minnesota over Oregon in pre-quarters. You can see that I'm maybe too high on this Minnesota team. Oregon probably a 2.5 point favorite in that game. I've got Pitt over Carleton. I'm not buying the cut hype. I just don't think that they play with enough consistency. I've got Colorado over UAH, ending the Cinderella story, and I've got Brown over Vermont. In my quarters, I have UNC over Minnesota. I've got Slow taking down Pitt. I've got UMass over Colorado, although I am concerned about UMass's health. If Wyatt Kellman's not playing, they could lose that game. And I've got Georgia over Brown. So my semis teams: UNC, Slow, UMass, Georgia. What say you?
Give me one more time. What are those? Give me one more time. What are those 4 teams?
UNC, Slow, UMass, Georgia.
Top 4. Okay. Just making sure I heard that right. Okay. All right. So my pre-quarters winners, I've got Oregon, UNC in pre-quarters. Maybe they'd be like so stunned. They'd be like, what is a pre-quarter? I don't know what that is. They don't even show up. They don't realize they're not just to show up at quarters. So yeah, I've got Oregon, UNC winning their pre-quarters. Look, I'm a man of the people. UAH in the quarters. Let's do it.
Wow.
And then I'll take Carleton to make quarters too because I got to back up.
Wow. We're already on totally different wavelengths.
Yeah, we're in a very different world. So my quarters are Brown versus Oregon, Georgia versus UNC, UMass versus UAH, and Slow versus Carleton. If I'm right, Charlie, if we come back to this moment, someone tab this. If we come back to this moment, Sunset Lake CBD sales going through the roof. Like people are going to be like, "This kid."
I'm going to help you out.
Something's going on.
I'm going to help you out right now. I'm going to help you out right now. These quarters picks are not going to age well.
Thank you. I appreciate you backing me up. Okay,
no problem.
So let me keep the spice going. Let's go to my semis. Let's take Oregon over Brown. Well, why not? I'm already on Oregon in the women's division. So
I don't hate it.
Let's quack, Mr. Ducksworth. I'm a duck, baby. For going to the Nationals, I'm a duck. Oregon over Brown.
Micah Glass about to
quarters.
check Jock Nissen into the boards.
They're gonna have to put him in the penalty box. Oh God. UNC Georgia quarter though. This is agonizing.
I mean, if that is the quarter, that's a really
good enough to
pick.
be in finals to win the title.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Hey Keith, I legitimately have those teams in finals. Continue.
I'm taking UNC to beat Georgia in quarters.
Okay.
UMass, the magic runs out. You come up against the juggernaut, and UMass just walks UAH out of the building, escorted out like they're Johnny Mansfield and Nationals. And then I'll have Slow and Carleton. So I'll take Slow to win that one. So I got Oregon, UNC, and UMass Slow in semis.
All right. Continue. Give us your final picks.
I'll just take a quick detour to the Beach Early Challenge, which I like as a little measuring stick. Your top 4 semis picks: UNC, UGA, UMass, and SLO. The people are fading Colorado hard right now. They're really fading Colorado. And the most popular finalists are UNC and Georgia. Barely UNC edging out UMass for those pick numbers, which are live updating right now. People are literally entering right now, and Georgia is the most popular champion right now. So I think we're gonna get a lot more picks, so these numbers are subject to change, but that's where we're at right now. Okay.
Sure.
Yes. Thank you, David P, for pointing out that this is absolutely wacky. I'm gonna have teams losing and then coming back and winning against teams that, crazy chain of events. Okay.
I don't think it's impossible that could be what plays out. A lot of it's going to come down to matchups.
That's what I'm betting on here, is that we are into not only matchups territory, but just like little bit of variation here and there, because teams can have these little lulls and play well because the quality of play, that the overall talent is so similar. I'm taking UNC into the final over Oregon. I think that's a place they're going to feel pretty comfortable. So UNC out of pre-quarters and into the final. I'm taking SLO to beat UMass. I saw Southwest to the moon. I saw some EMF, I think, pick SLO, shocker, to win this thing. I'm taking SLO over UMass in semis. And we're not getting the 4-peat. I can't pick that. That's out of pocket. So give me the SLO title. Give me the SLO title. I'm a big fan. Give me SLO to win this thing.
Wow.
What have I done?
Wow.
What have I done?
I just changed my mind about one of my finals picks, by the way.
Love it.
Live on the air change. I changed it in my spreadsheet. Okay. My semis: UNC versus SLO, UMass versus Georgia. I'll start in the bottom of the bracket. Georgia, UMass. I think both teams are capable of winning the game. I think it's basically a pick 'em. And I've been thinking to myself, like, do I want to trust this UMass team that has kind of looked shakier in the second half of the season, but largely due to the fact that they've had people missing? Or do I want to take the hot team in Georgia, who has spectacularly flamed out at nationals in recent history? It is so hard to make a choice here because a lot of it, to me, comes down to relative health of UMass. If they are at 100%, I think they're the best team in the country. But I don't think they are at 100%. And if guys are at 80%, it's going to look like the New York Knicks playing the Indiana Pacers out there. I think Georgia has finally figured out their offense, and they have enough depth to actually make this run. And I frankly think Aiden Downey will be the best player in the game. And I think that will be enough for them to get past UMass. So I'm taking Georgia to the finals. On the top side of the bracket, I've got UNC and SLO. And I said a moment ago that I had UNC in the final. But Keith, I don't know. Something's just not quite right in Chapel Hill this year. They have a great team. They have great players. They have great coaches. We know their history. We know their legacy. But I just don't think they're going to have the answers this time for SLO. What we've seen from SLO and Norm has been unbelievable. We already know what we've seen from the veterans on this team for years and years. Calvin Brown is going to cook. And I just think that there's like a level of motivation that is there for some of these other teams that's not there for UNC. And it's hard to find that if you're UNC. Even if you're telling yourself that you have it. I just think there's going to be enough there for SLO to pull it off. They have looked really, really sharp when they've had their full lineup out there. And they've taken the lumps that they need to take. When they lost to Oregon, I was like, this is a good thing. They're going to get tuned up by that. You don't want to go through the regular season never losing a game. It's not a good thing. So that means that I have SLO and Georgia in the final. which means I'm picking a new champion for the first time. I mean, have either teams ever won? SLO definitely has never won. Did Georgia win one back in the day?
No, it is not.
I don't think so.
I do not think they did. Not off the top of my head.
So I'm calling a brand new college champion. And I'm gonna go Georgia. I think Aiden Downey's about to show
Thank
off
God.
why he was the dog back in high school. And I know that this Georgia team hasn't been there yet. And I know there's going to be a lot of skepticism. And I've been burned by this team before. But look at their resume, okay? They lost one game at warm-up, and then they won the tournament. They crushed Brown 15-10 in the final. They beat UMass. Okay, then they lost to UMass in the final Smoky Mountain, and you're like, okay. Again, a fully healthy UMass is probably the best team, and I would probably take them to win. Easterns was as strong a performance that we've seen from a team in a long time. They beat Vermont. They beat SLO. They beat UMass. Pitt. Undefeated. Crushed everybody all the way through the conferences and regionals. They have the depth to match their star players. This is not just a Downey and Adam Miller team anymore. Scotty Whitley has been amazing. Jack Krugler. Cole Kruke. These guys have been great. Go watch the tape. I'm taking Georgia to win the 2024 college championships.
Well, one, thank God. I thought we were going to, after all that madness, end up with the same champion. And a worthy champion. I definitely could be wrong about Georgia. I think that I'm been trying to think about in my picks. Can I both think they're the third or fourth best team and not have them getting out of quarterfinals? Is that possible? And that they're definitely good enough. And I think you're even say they don't have the experience. They played in a final. Don't forget. A lot of those players are still a part of, they came up with that group. So I think that they've been tested. That is not something that I doubt about this team. And you talk about the connections between these players who've been playing together since YCCs, since before it was Midtown High School, since back in the Grady days. There's chemistry and confidence and belief and trust. And I think Georgia's a very reasonable pick. I mean, there's probably 4 or 5 teams I feel pretty good about picking as champion, and that's a pretty wild place to be. I do have to go back. David P pointed out that I misread my bracket, which is, so it should have been Oregon and SLO in semis and UMass and UNC, not Oregon, UNC, and UMass SLO in my semifinals.
Okay.
And originally that wasn't going to change. That wasn't going to change my picks. I was like, yeah, I'm still going to have SLO and UNC in the final. But listening to you talk, I feel like we're selling UMass short. And so I talked myself back into UMass over UNC in the semis. So I got to go back. I have Oregon versus SLO, UMass versus UNC, and then I'm taking UMass and SLO in the final. And then last year, remember when UMass got super hot and just couldn't miss? Luke Harwood, just absolute takeover mode. That's going to be SLO this year. That's going to be Kyle Liu and Anton Orm and Calvin Brown, just improbable, ridiculous deep shots. SLO's going to catch fire at the right time. That's why they're going to win. So I've got UMass against SLO in the final, and I'm taking SLO to win. I think UMass is really damn good. And I know UNC is too, but UMass is so deep. They are so deep. So that's how I ended up with them. I had to flip my pick on them in UNC.
Got it. All right. Well, let's take a look at our streaming schedule. This is the most coverage that will have ever been done at the D1 College Championships. My dream of streaming every single game is not quite there yet, but maybe sometime soon. We will have a showcase game every round, decked out with 5 cameras. This is how things get started. This has not been spell checked yet. This is not, there might be some errors here, so don't look too close. But we will have 4 games around on Field Pass. We will also have an additional game being broadcasted by a brand new AI-based camera system. So we'll see how it goes. This is essentially a live test of this system, which we have been working with for about 6 weeks. I've been kind of following the AI camera industry for like 5 years. So we're going to have this bonus game each round. It is an unbelievable amount of coverage. Most teams will be streamed at least twice. Every team at the tournament is going to be streamed at least once. Some teams will get up to 4 games through pool play. And then, so let's just start here, Keith. I mean, we kick things off with Vermont versus Colorado. Wait. We went to the next page already, I guess, because this is go back here. Oregon, Santa Cruz to get things started in the women's division, 8:30 a.m. Central Time on Friday, and we've got that UNC Brown game, round 2. I'm pumped up.
I mean, you get off the bat, you get 2 potential Rookie of the Year candidates, Michiko Magnan and Rachel Chang, going head to head in the women's division, and then a game that like my whole set of picks rests on in round 2. So pretty good stuff. Look at the field pass matchups are fire too. Like this is going to be electric.
Texas UAH in that 10:30 round is going to be awesome. Like Victoria Tufts. How does the West Coast match up with the East Coast? I mean, I don't want to call that an upset alert game, but I'm curious to see what Victoria can do there. Obviously, there's something isn't right because Victoria is currently listed as playing 2 games in that round. Like I said, these are going to be fully checked. That should be British Columbia against Tufts, of course, as we talked about earlier.
Yeah. The
everything is right there. The logo is right. The name is wrong. So that's UBC Tufts, which is even better. Cal, can their zone challenge Pitt? Take a look at that. That'll be fun. Okay, next slide. These are the late matchups on Friday. Vermont, Colorado on the showcase field, and then Carleton versus Stanford. Just phenomenal matchups at the top of both of those pools.
I got a message on Twitter that was like, you must stream Vermont, Colorado. This is the game. Somebody was trying to give me the hint or strong army. I don't know, but it's there, and it's pretty good fireworks. Just Candy McCarthy and Stacey Gaskill going up for jump balls against each other. I'm in for that. This is just, you got Georgia and Oregon in field pass in that round. I don't even know what the best round is. There's so many good matchups. That round may be it. That round 3, 1:00 on Friday is basically straight heat.
All right, let's go to the next slide. We got our last round on Friday. Colorado, Cal Poly Slow. Come on. Top of Pool D. Going to be a fantastic matchup. We've got UNC Oregon on Field Pass. That's how good that round is, Keith. I don't know, Keith. This is pretty amazing round. And then, any final thoughts on the final on Friday?
Oh, 4-5 is basically a lock to get streamed. That's that way. Plus, we didn't want to miss Ottawa upsetting UMass, so that is on the stream too. For our Canadian fans, of which I know there are many. I've already seen somebody in the chat talking about don't sleep on the GGs.
I'll quickly note, as I already saw a question in the chat about this, like how to watch. There's going to be a whole article out about this with all of the details and everything, but the basic ideas are you can get a subscription, standard or all access. Standard subscriptions will get you the showcase game every round, as well as the primary Field Pass broadcast. If you want to watch the individual games on Field Pass, as had been last year, you will need an all access subscription. The all access game, as you might imagine, is also available to all access subscribers only. Now, if you don't want a subscription for whatever reason, even though with a subscription, you get all of the other benefits like getting into the Discord, exclusive articles, bonus podcast episodes, you can just buy an event pack that is just all of the games from College Nationals, except you get everything, just the games. You get them forever. So that's also an option for you if you would rather not get a subscription. So that's the ways to watch. Let's keep going here. Brown, Texas, Saturday morning. We've got that UNC UAH matchup in pool play. Oregon UCSB women's. That's going to be a great game. Even Slow Vermont. I mean, that's a great round too, Keith. I don't know. I think you spoke too soon.
Maybe I got a little excited. I don't know. Plus we got some Quincy Booth on the stream. We got a back-to-back rounds, so although they cross over days, a Quincy Booth, so you don't have to miss out on the potential assist leader again. He had led the division in assists as a rookie, as somebody pointed out in our chat. Maybe going to run it up. Maybe going for that Angela Zoo run.
We are streaming 72 games this year from College Nationals, which includes, well, I'll leave it in suspense. Let's go to the next slide. Let's take a look at the next two rounds from Saturday. Oregon and Carleton men's, the next showcase game at 10:30. And then at 1, we get Carolina versus UCSB. Great matchups once again over on Field Pass. And the Victoria Vikes versus the Victoria Vikes. Obviously, that should be UBC as well. So we'll get that fixed. But yeah, I'm excited. I mean, even the all access game down there in that 1 o'clock round, Colorado, Vermont, that could be, it's possible that could be for the pool. You never know.
We are so close to getting every game that, like, it's just every round has good games in it. You know what I mean? You got Stanford, Washington in the round prior, Pitt, Minnesota. I picked Minnesota to finish over Pitt, so I need that game to go my way. NC State's a 4 seed. I think can win some games. Like, I think it's unlikely that we're going to miss out on the big ones.
All right, let's go to the next slide. This is
there's final. There's more. Oh my gosh.
We got to keep going, Keith. This is the final round of pool play. Always a kind of an odd one. You know, some of these games might end up being duds depending on what's happened so far. Sometimes teams sit their starters because they've already locked up the pool. But, you know, I'm sure that Carleton-Washington game is going to be for something. And so that's going to be a great one. And, you know, the players know each other well. So many people from Seattle playing on both of those teams. UMass, Minnesota in the men's division. Great matchup over there on Field Pass. And hey, Penn State and Michigan could be playing for their first win at nationals potentially in that game. So even if it's just for pride, that's a big spot too. On to
that could be a game to
5:30.
decide a pre-quarter spot. You don't know.
That's right. You know, we'll see what happens with pre-quarters and which divisions end up where, but we'll have, I guess, 6 pre-quarters for you. Let's go to the next slide. Quarterfinals, we're streaming every single one of them, so you won't miss a thing. 3 of the games on Field Pass, and of course, showcase games in both of the rounds. And for the first time ever, Ultiworld is streaming the semifinals from College Nationals. I could not be more excited. We're going to have more cameras than we've ever had on game. We have just an amazing crew and talent team, and we're going to have the drone flying. It's at Bree Stevens. It's really just kind of a dream scenario, and I really could not be more excited to bring what are sure to be 4 fantastic games your way on Sunday night.
I mean, semifinal Sunday is the place to be. So now you're getting the full. We'll be there. I actually will be back home, but I'm definitely going to be watching. It's it's going to be fun to be like, I'm lucky that the time that I won't be there will be like when we have the best broadcast of it that we've ever done.
So let's go to the next slide. This is just the finals, and they will be on ESPNU. We are not broadcasting these games, but those are the final 2 games on Monday, all alone on the schedule. No consolation games or anything. Just all of us getting a chance to focus on the finals on Memorial Day as we kick off summer unofficially. Wow, what a weekend it's going to be. So with that, it's time to get to our question of the week. No, not our question of the week. Yes, our question of the week. There's a trivia question of the week, and then there's a question of the week. So question of the week. Keith, take it away.
All right. So we're right between D3 and D1 Nationals. So this question comes in. How would the top players at D3 fare at D1 Nationals? How would they compete with the top players at D1?
Will Brandt would be he might be an All-American in D1. I mean, he would be easily a top 25 guy in D1. JJ Gallion, I mean, she's an elite club player. Why wouldn't she'd be clearly a starter? She's so fast. I mean, I think she's not going to be able to completely dominate the way that she did in D3 this year, but she would still be a really strong player. And, I don't know if she'd be an All-American candidate, but she'd be a starter on probably an O-line for almost any team in the country. What do you think?
That's for sure. I mean, I think if she's at the level of players who are probably like at the fringes of or just outside of our top 25 players. I think of someone like Quincy Booth, who's a player who is a heavy usage player on another team, on one of the teams that maybe isn't contending, Grace Maroon, something like that. So I definitely think she can contend. And I think this has kind of become the case in D3 is that the best players are more or less at the level. It's down the depth where the challenges start to arise, where I think it gets a lot harder to compete. I think that when you take those best players, like Rowan Dong is going to win matchups in the air against any college player. Literally not every, but like if you put Rowan Dong on the field, they're gonna get buckets. Like that's how it goes. But I don't know if you put the 10th best player on some of these rosters at D1 Nationals if they're going to be able to keep up.
Sure, of course. I mean, that's the thing. You can tell that like throwing skill and athleticism drops off a lot faster on rosters at D3 than at D1. But that's not surprising. I mean, look at the size of the schools, the legacy of the programs, coaching, all that. There's a lot of reasons. But I think the top players clearly would be highly competitive in D1. Please give us a like and a subscribe over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can give us a little review over on Spotify or Apple or wherever. Our subscriber bonus this week, we're going to take you inside some of our broadcast changes. We've got so many new things coming to D1 this year. We're also going to talk about all of our strategy and picks for Beat Charlie Challenge, Fantasy, hashtag the game. Make sure you get your picks in before the tournament starts on Friday because you wouldn't want to miss out. It really makes it a lot more fun to follow along. If anybody wants to make any side bets with me, DM me in Discord. I'm always listening. I'm always listening. That's going to do it for this edition of Deep Look. D1 College Nationals starts on Friday, 8:30 a.m. Central Time. Set your calendars, get your subscription, and join us for a wonderful weekend in Madison, Wisconsin. We'll see you there.
Hey, congrats to Calvin Shorba, Bix Weisberg, Raquel Alegria. Nationals showing out for D3, representing the brand.